If Euphoria taught us anything, it's that modern television has a serious problem. Not because the show was bad, not because the cast wasn't talented, but because almost every frustration fans had with Euphoria can actually be traced back to bigger industry trends. And once you notice it in Euphoria, you will notice it everywhere. Here's how one of television's biggest shows accidentally exposed everything that's broken about modern TV.
Before we dive in, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think Euphoria's problems are unique to the show, or are they symptoms of a larger issue across television? Leave a comment below and join the conversation. And if you enjoy deep dives into TV, film, and entertainment trends, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future videos. Let's get right into it. Elephant in the room, 8-episode seasons.
Yeah, and I think at first glance, when people say that, we want more episodes, people think that it's because, we just want to watch more for the sake of watching more. But I think 8-episode seasons leaves out a lot of the filler, the relationship growth that we need to see.
Yeah, the world building is missing. There's no bottleneck episodes where we might get introduced to some layering in there.
Yeah, and it allows you to show the character thought process. I think we saw it in Euphoria where they kind of just had to spell it out for you or jump ahead with no explanation. I mean, we saw Cassie, we start the season, they're already engaged. She's immediately thinking about the flowers and how they're going to get there, and they're married 2 episodes later.
Yeah, and then that escalation to Nate and his final episode, it was like giving whiplash. Whereas when we think back to shows like the original seasons of The Walking Dead or The Vampire Diaries, I think is a great example, right? Where you got 24 episodes, 7 seasons, 8 seasons. We really got to understand and know the characters. And when there was a shocking event, you almost felt betrayed in a way, in the best way.
For sure, and you got to see them in different situations outside of the norm as well. With these 8-episode seasons, you can only tell the one story that they set out to tell. No side quests or day trips the way that we used to get on shows like Supernatural or these really long-running shows. And seeing them in situations outside the norm is how we learn more about that character and about their thought process and how they form deeper connections that make sense to you and feed those future seasons.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's just about getting older too, but I have to do a rewatch anytime a show comes back. I don't remember anything because it was only 8 episodes. It's such a blip in time. Like, it doesn't even have the same impact.
Yeah, and I think a lot of, the argument for 8-episode seasons is that they're better quality and that they're, mini movies. But I don't remember Vampire Diaries as being poor quality. I certainly don't remember The Walking Dead as being poor quality. Those were, high special effects, lots of characters, lots of different sets, and they seemed as though they were high quality.
Yeah. And you also see too, even with the 8 episodes, like one episode will be 47 minutes, another one's going to be 93. So it just feels like even the creators are having a hard time sticking to 8 episodes. They just are still putting themselves in that constraint.
For sure. I would love to see, maybe if we can't go back to 18 episodes or 24 episodes, The 100 made, they love to do 13 or 12. I would love to see just a few more episodes to flesh out those relationships.
Yeah. And we touched on this a little bit, but it's not just the 8 episodes. It's the fact that we have to wait like 3, 4, 5 years in between seasons now.
Yeah, and I think that hurts some of the loyalty of your fan base who obviously moves on to other shows, potentially forgets quite a bit about your show. I know, like we were saying, we have to do rewatches before new seasons because there's only 6 episodes and then you're waiting up to 3 years for the next season. You're gonna forget what happened.
Yeah. And you don't build as strong of a connection to it. So when I find out that the show's coming back, most of the time my response is, oh yeah. And then I have to go back.
For sure. And again, a lot of the justification for that is because it is supposed to be this huge increase in quality. And I just think there has to be a happy medium for some of these shows. Again, The Walking Dead had so much special effects and they turned out 18 episodes every single year. So it has to be a happy medium here where we can get more frequent episodes and more frequent seasons without having to wait, 3 years. That's a long time.
Yeah. And then so much happens in that time, not just with the fan base, but with the creators as well. Like they start to get bored with their own world and they'll start dropping storylines. They'll completely do 180s in terms of character development. Like it changes so much.
Yeah, and again, we saw that with Euphoria, where the difference between season 2 and season 3 was so stark, and you have to imagine it's because of how many years they spent in between. A lot of people said, well, yes, but now the characters have grown up, there's a time jump. But to have completely changed the landscape and the motif from that neon nights and neon colors to this very much Western setup and coloring and costuming, you have to believe that the creator wanted to change, because for him it's been 7 years across this show, not just 3 seasons, and he probably wanted to do something new, and I think that difference was quite stark.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point about the time jumps. The time jumps I feel like we're seeing way more often. Before it used to be so shocking, so random that they would happen, and now they're happening almost out of necessity. Because if a show has kids or teenagers in it, they grow even while the show's on pause, right? And if you think of Stranger Things, I think that was a big example where there was almost this race to wrap up because the cast was aging out.
And as fans, you almost had to ignore how much older, for example, that Millie Bobby Brown looked, compared to like what her character was supposed to be. And, we hear Harry Potter is turning into a series. They're currently filming. Those are young actors. You're in a literal race against time to tell this story before they're older. And if you're taking 3 years in between seasons, they will be mid-30s by the time you finish.
Yeah.
And that will be very apparent.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they handle that one.
For sure.
And this is kind of a byproduct of the first 2 points, but because there's only 8 episodes, there's 3 years in between seasons, the actors end up getting involved in so many more projects outside of their TV show, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it does have an impact on the show.
Yeah, you get the idea that actors would want to do a variety of projects where in the past they probably weren't able to. I mean, we definitely saw it in Vampire Diaries, where Nina Dobrev did 6 seasons straight of Vampire Diaries and then came out and said she wanted to do other projects. Yeah. But I think that now with actors doing, 3 or 4 movies at one time plus a show, their focus just isn't on the show, and you can tell.
Yeah, especially if we look at Euphoria. We rarely saw Nate Jacobs interact with any of the other cast members, and I'm sure that had to do with his very intense filming schedule. Same with Zendaya. Like, there definitely was times where you could tell they were just trying to find the time with her.
Absolutely. I mean, the entire reason Rue's character left the wedding was because Zendaya had to go shoot something else, and I think if you added up all of Nate Jacobs' time, he was probably shooting for like a couple weeks.
Yeah. Maybe even just a day, and then he probably had to fly out to the next one.
Exactly. And I mean, Euphoria was this great example where I think every actor on there became an A-list celebrity.
Yeah. And well deserved after first 2 seasons. Like, they definitely showed what their range was. But as a fan of the show, it is hard to watch knowing that Nate didn't really interact with anyone.
Yeah, and that his story didn't get the time it deserved to be actually fleshed out. And, when we look back at some of these 8-episode seasons, I was really trying to look back at the earliest ones that I remember being super short. And I come back to True Detective Season 1, which starred Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson, 2 movie stars kind of doing this, at the time, odd thing by taking on a TV show project. And they were completely focused on it, and it took the world by storm, but I think it was meant to be a rarity. I think there are movie stars and there are TV actors, and you need to be focused on the project that you're doing.
Yeah. And nobody's saying that every show needs to be like Grey's Anatomy and Ellen Pompeo, where she's on salary for decades at this point. But I do think that there is a little bit more needed to make sure that the actors are available for the show that they're committing to, so that they can give a full uh, time to their story.
For sure. So this one has been increasing over the last couple of years, and that's actor drama affecting the storyline.
Yeah. I think with this season, it was very evident that not only were their schedules busy, but there was also a couple actresses that weren't willing to work with each other that shall remain nameless. But I think it was pretty obvious throughout. And I'm not saying that people should have to work in a toxic environment. Like, if we think back to Sophia Bush and Chad Michael Murray in One Tree Hill, I think most people will look at that and say that wasn't a good situation for them to have been in at such a young age.
Yeah.
But there is also something to be said if we look at Outer Banks and Madeline Klein and Chase Stokes. They were in a relationship, they broke up, and they filmed the most recent season after their breakup. And they still had the same amount of FaceTime. It didn't impact their storyline. And I think there has to be a happy medium where we can protect the individuals, but still give some space to protect the story.
Yeah, there needs to be a level of professionalism where you can do those characters justice if that is what their storyline has been naturally heading to. And I think we keep seeing situations where so-and-so didn't get along, or, an actor will leave a show completely because they're not working well with their other castmates. And again, part of this could be because there's so many years between seasons, that we're running into this issue where they're not spending all of this time together to have that chemistry and to stay, on good terms with each other. But I think there needs to be more professionalism across actors that aren't affecting the storylines.
Yeah, I agree. Now, we obviously can't talk about modern TV and not talk about social media.
Yeah, and I think TV shows have had big fandoms since the beginning.
Yeah.
But now with social media, we're able to connect with each other and have these discussions about these shows and go in deep about the relationships we liked and the symbolism we saw and the parallels, and really share that excitement online, which is visible to the creators and the writers and the actors themselves. And I think there's been a bit of a struggle with shows learning to adapt to that visibility.
Yeah. I think even knowing that there is so much feedback, I wonder if part of it is just wanting to shock us that they won't go with what the fandom is wanting. For example, I think of the 100. Now, I wasn't necessarily shipping them, but I know that there was a huge push for Bellamy and Clark to end up together.
Yeah.
And it seemed like if you watch the show, I can watch it with an unbiased mind and see that there were some examples, and maybe they should have ended up together. But it was very clear that the writers weren't going to let that happen.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's because they intended for the show to be received one way, and then they're so surprised that it was received in a different way, or that the fans saw something that they didn't. But we do see them trying to kind of subvert expectations. We saw it in Euphoria as well, where Sam Levinson said that he saw how many people wanted Nate Jacobs to be punished, so he was determined to make you feel bad about him being punished.
Yeah.
So in the way that he died, he wanted you to feel sorry for him. And I think sometimes when writers try to force the opinion of fans and try to make you feel something, you can tell that it's not genuine and you won't feel that way. And I think for Nate Jacobs, he just seemed like a different character this season, and I didn't feel that compassion that I think he was trying to make us feel.
Yeah. And you can tell when you're watching older shows. Like when you pull a show that just had to air, like by the time it was hitting TV, it was already cut and done in the writer's room, and they just had to live with it. And I think the audience had some shocking moments. You could tell that even the people writing it probably had some feelings about how it was being received. And now it feels like things are a little bit more fluid, which again is not wholly bad, but there is still some, I think there's a middle ground to be found.
Yeah, I mean, you see Veronica Mars, which was an early 2000s show, canceled after 3 seasons for relatively low ratings, but that fandom was so intense and so passionate about the show that they actually crowdfunded their own movie decades later, got the show brought back for a limited series, and that was through sheer love of the show in a time where, there wasn't as much interaction with each other to have it. It was just genuine love of the show. But the writers didn't create it with that intention and didn't know that that would be the outcome.
And imagine Veronica Mars originally aired today and how much of that show would have changed by getting the feedback from social media.
Well, if you watched the reboot series, the 6 episodes, we kind of see how that ends, and it's not great. Because again, the creator tries to subvert expectations, and it just sometimes, we always hear about this dirty word, fan service. Sometimes if your fans are seeing something that's truly there, you need to honor the story and go through with it. And sometimes it feels as though maybe ego gets in the way a little bit. Game of Thrones series finale might be another example. And they just put out these things to try to shock you.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel true necessarily to the story.
Yeah.
Maybe we're completely off base. Maybe 8-episode seasons, 3-year waits, and actors balancing multiple projects are just the future of television. Or maybe we lost something along the way. Because when we look back at shows like The Vampire Diaries, The 100, Lost, Supernatural, even early Walking Dead, what stands out isn't bigger budgets or better visuals. It's the amount of time we got to spend with the characters. The relationships felt deeper, the worlds felt bigger, and the stories had room to breathe. So what do you think? Is Euphoria just one example of a much bigger industry problem? Or is this simply the evolution of television? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. And if there's another show you think perfectly represents what's happening in modern TV, tell us below. We might cover it next. We'll see you in the next one. Talk to you soon. Bye.